Welcome back. Today in this explainer, we're diving into the unseen, hidden vulnerabilities that literally run our modern lives. It's going to be a wild ride because we're connecting the massive, cosmic scale of astrophysics directly to the everyday grind of banking and, surprisingly enough, to the creative chaos of university band culture. Seriously, it's all connected. We are exploring exactly how we can move away from these incredibly fragile, single-point systems toward real, unshakable resilience.
So, here's our roadmap for today. 1. A cosmic threat looms. 2. When the internet dies. 3. The danger of single systems. 4. Decentralizing our communication. 5. Diversifying human potential. And finally, 6. Building a resilient future.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if the sun just wiped out the entire internet tomorrow, right? It sounds completely made up, like the plot of a late-night sci-fi movie. But the reality is, our heavily relied upon global web is literally at the mercy of space weather. The very infrastructure that allows you to stream this explainer is way more fragile than any of us would like to admit.
Section 1. A cosmic threat looms.
So this massive threat comes from coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. Basically, these are huge clouds of highly magnetized particles that get shot straight out from the sun. And if the Earth happens to be sitting right in their path, these particles slam into our magnetic field and induce absolutely devastating electrical currents right down here on the ground. To really grasp the scale of this, let's rewind a bit to 1859. A massive CME hit us in what's famously known as the Carrington Event. Get this, the auroras were so intense that gold miners in the Rocky Mountains literally woke up at midnight and started cooking breakfast because they thought the sun had come up. People in the northeast US could actually read the newspaper by the light of the aurora. Wild, right? But it wasn't all just a pretty light show. Telegraph pylons were literally throwing sparks and operators were getting physically shocked. Now contrast that incredibly romanticized piece of history with today. The NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center is warning us that our current solar cycle 25, could hit its absolute peak in 2025. And unlike back in 1859, we now have an entire global internet grid standing right in the crosshairs.
And look, I want to be clear. This isn't just theory or science fiction. Top-tier networking scientists have completely validated this threat in peer-reviewed ACM research. They're warning us that while the actual optical fiber itself is immune to these magnetic currents, our vast, sprawling network of submarine cables, they are at incredibly high risk. Why? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Because these long-haul cables sitting at the bottom of the ocean have to use signal repeaters spaced out every 50 to 150 kilometers just to keep the signal going. And those repeaters are powered by electrical conductors that can get completely fried by geomagnetically induced currents during a superstorm. If that happens, we are effectively severing entire continents from one another.
The economic fallout? Oh, it would be absolutely devastating. Let's look at the numbers. Researchers from Lloyd's of London and AER estimate that a Carrington-level event hitting us today could cost the U.S. economy alone anywhere from $600 billion to $2.6 trillion. Trillion with a T. That equates to roughly 3.6 to 15.5% of their entire annual GDP. So yeah, this isn't just a quirky infrastructure glitch, it's a profound, existential threat to the whole global economy. This is exactly why understanding these vulnerabilities matters so deeply to all of us.
Section 2. When the internet dies.
So, zooming in from that huge cosmic scale, what actually happens to our modern society when our digital infrastructure just suddenly drops offline? To really get a feel for this, let's look at a very recent reality: the complete nationwide internet outage that hit Bangladesh in 2024. Take Sohail Arman, for example, a local banker. During this massive blackout, he was sitting at home, staring at a blank screen, completely unable to process millions in letters of credit or overseas transactions. Meanwhile, he's still fielding frantic calls from panicked clients who are facing massive cash flow issues. The whole SWIFT network, completely inaccessible. The entire import-export pipeline was frozen solid. He actually noted that, some things never changed, no matter what. The stress and the demands were still 100% there, but the digital tools he needed to fix them were just suddenly gone.
And of course, it affected everyone on the street too. A local resident, Rizwan Hakim, noted that his absolute only saving grace for daily survival was finding a single functional ATM near his home so he could buy groceries. But wait, why did the ATMs work when literally everything else was dead? Well, it turns out banks managed to keep a select few running purely on their internal, local internets. And honestly, it perfectly illustrates just how utterly helpless we all become when the main, centralized system goes down.
Section 3. The danger of single systems. And this brilliantly illustrates the golden thread running through this whole explainer. Whether we're talking about a massive cosmic storm or a local web blackout,
The immense danger always lies in a single point of failure. Just think about our incredibly fragile systems for a second. We rely on centralized cell towers that instantly drop during power cuts. We have a total dependency on bank loans for corporate growth. We rely strictly on formal academics for life skills. Now compare those fragile points to resilient, decentralized alternatives. Think of metastatic peer-to-peer networks that bypass cell towers completely. Think of public equity markets that distribute financial risk across the board, or even informal, highly collaborative environments like university band culture that teach really dynamic problem solving.
Section 4. Decentralizing our communication.
So, if a solar storm fries the submarine cables or a local blackout shuts down the cell towers, how on earth do we actually talk to each other? The answer lies in off-grid, decentralized technology, like Meshtastic. Running on long-range LoRa technology, it provides an incredible alternative. It's highly secure, packed with AES-256 encryption. And the best part? It requires 0 cell towers and absolutely 0 internet. It's an open-source mesh network providing pure peer-to-peer connectivity. It literally turns every single user into a node, completely bypassing the fragile central system and allowing entire communities to maintain vital communication channels even in total darkness. A real game changer.
Section 5. Diversifying human potential.
But listen, this idea of decentralization isn't just about hardware and radios. Look at the financial sector. Experts note that companies in emerging markets, like those affected by the outages we just talked about, are leaving an absolute fortune on the table by relying solely on traditional bank loans. Just like relying on one single internet cable, a CFO depending entirely on a single bank lender is risking dangerous fragility. The bank sets the cost of capital, and your growth is capped by whatever collateral you have. So what's the resilient alternative? The public equity market. Listing on the stock exchange totally decentralizes your financial risk, unlocks patient capital, and creates a highly resilient financial foundation that isn't just tied to a single lender's whim.
And you know what? This same principle applies perfectly to human capital too. Consider university band culture. Now, while formal classroom academics are obviously vital, relying on them as your single, only system for personal development is a massive single point of failure. Think about it. Joining a campus rock band requires managing totally chaotic schedules, resolving intense creative conflicts, and performing under extreme real-time pressure. As OECD research actually points out, musical collaboration strengthens problem-solving and pattern recognition. It acts as a form of decentralized learning. It builds the exact kind of adaptable, resilient human capital we all need to survive and actually lead when formal, rigid systems fail.
Section 6. Building a resilient future.
Let's move to and see how this builds over time. How do we tie the massive cosmos, local internet blackouts, corporate finance, and rock bands all together? Well, look at the timeline. In 1921, we had our last massive global solar storm, the New York Railroad Superstorm. Fast forward to 2024, we witnessed a complete, crippling web blackout in Bangladesh, proving exactly how paralyzed our modern society gets without connectivity. And looking just ahead, 2025 marks the predicted peak of solar cycle 25. The systemic shocks aren't just possible, guys. They are inevitable. And our constant reliance on centralized systems is only accelerating that risk. So I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought today. When the central systems go dark, what is your backup plan? Whether it's the very real threat of a solar storm knocking out the global internet, a sudden financial crunch closing off bank loans, or the urgent need for adaptable leadership skills during a crisis, resilience always comes from decentralization. We've got to diversify our communication, our capital, and our minds. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Start building your resilient alternatives right now, and I'll see you next time.